Welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hattrick. Here at Bathurst in the Forest, my very special guest, Basic Ollie, Rascal, Rabbit, Josh Martin. It's great to have you back on the show. Drive fast and try not to crash. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's another edition of the Car Sim and Race Driver Show with me, Hugh Hattrick, and my very special guest. I know I say that every week, but this time I mean it for sure, but I always mean it. But here we are. It is the legend that is Chris Haye.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me back on, Hugh. And I must say, I am a big fan of the new intro. You've managed to shoehorn some great footage into that. I hope the rest of the show is even remotely as interesting as that rather spectacular intro video.
And I can assure you, it's all copyrighted. It's all legal. But, yes, that was a good friend, Daniel Piers from Australia. Through Josh Martin, who enabled me who made the video for me. But what a fantastic year you've had since we last had you on the show, though, Chris. Your channel has grown hugely, up to nearly 70,000 subscribers, which is brilliant. You're now full time, and you've got a studio there, as we can see behind, with these wonderful lighting and cements. So, tell me, in the last year, what's been the big developments? How did it all go?
How to sum up the last 12 months? Well, I think most people know most of what's happened in 2020 because it's been a busy year. But from my perspective, I've just been plugging away, making sim racing videos. A lot of them have, thankfully for me at least, caught the attention of some brands outside of sim racing and inside of sim racing that have allowed me to do some commercial work, which has helped provide a stable income, which has allowed me to go full time and ultimately sort of led to developing this space here. As you sort of referenced earlier, I was like most sim racing YouTubers, I was operating out of a spare bedroom. Didn't even have a shed to my name at the time. We do actually. It's just very leaky. You wouldn't want to a sim rig in there. I'm not even a fan of going and getting the lawnmower out, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
But so yes, it's just been plugging away and trying to make some smart choices, and hopefully they've worked out, because I really don't want to give this place up. It's rather nice.
It looks absolutely brilliant. But you've got really quite a unique channel, because obviously you describe the latest sim developments and all the kind of new technology, and also the kind of the mods. And I think this is a big thing, which I have to say I didn't know really anything about as from an early kind of Gran Turismo sport player. But you've really caught an audience who obviously likes to know what's the latest thing they can get their hands on. How did you kind of come up with that? Was it just because you've played lots of different games and you were involved in that, or what was it that caught your eye from the different types of sim racing?
Yeah, there's a bit of all of that in there. I think when I started the channel, I was quite keen, perhaps other than the first few videos, which don't fit what I'm about to say at all, but I was quite keen not to just produce exactly the same content that the people that were sort of on the scene at the time were producing. Your Jimmy Broadbents and your Gamer Muscles were probably the two, and various others as well. But there were a lot of people driving the cars, and there weren't that many videos detailing what was happening within the sim racing scene, what was happening particularly in the modding scene. There was some stuff, but it wasn't particularly prevalent. There were some review videos of gear, and I knew that, well, maybe if I put some sort of a bit more production value driven stuff towards that side of things, maybe I could carve out a niche there. And I just sort of thought, well, once I'd worked out that I kind of really enjoyed making YouTube videos, that I should try and bring as much of my own voice and personality, and particularly my own sort of production style to it. As many people will know that know my channel and know me, I was a professional photographer for years and years ago. So I've got some sort of studio photography background. So it was kind of always working towards this place that I'm at the moment. It's just, it's one of those things that takes time to build.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and I mean, because I've always enjoyed your mod videos when you have a specific game, like a Assetto Corsa, and then they've made like Formula One with the VR, or they've brought in a new car from, I say, a classic racing car from somewhere. And I mean, because I suppose that's what a lot of people like, because they get that game, they get the mod, and then they want to have it. They can then have a fantastic race, and it just brings the realism of racing to them. And how do you find out all of these kind of news? Are you in the kind of modding community?
I think you just take part in discussions. You talk to people. There are all sorts of forums, and lately it's all moved over to Discord, where these discussions take place, and it's just keeping an ear to the ground. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily the most up to date with a lot of it, because I spend so much time making videos about these things. I quite often miss what's going on because slaving over an Adobe Premiere session rather than necessarily chatting to the people who would normally keep me abreast of those things, or reading the forum pages, or what have you. It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole. But it's that's one of the beauties of sim racing, is that there is such a variety and plurality of content, that it's not just go and race Formula One cars. There's classic content, there's rallycross, there's rally, there's a whole drifting community built around Assetto Corsa, and there's a whole set of mods that support that. So there are all of these different niches within sim racing, or within simulated cars, if you will, because not all of it's racing, of course. And all of this has grown in such a wonderful, wonderful way that I can't help but be excited by it, and highlight these fun things when I find them. I did a video recently that you may have seen on a Formula student team who had their 2020 season ruined because of COVID, as everything's been ruined by COVID. But they did their 2020 season scrapped. So the real world car that they were going to develop for this year, or they had developed for this year, wasn't going to be able to go down to Silverstone and compete in the Formula student competition. So they thought, well, we can bring it to life in a racing sim, and we can help it compete there. And there was a little Formula student sim championship that took place about it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about sim racing, is that it can do things like that in a way that, should you have the real world restrictions that we have, by unfortunately being tethered to living in the real world most of the time, are just not possible.
So what are some of your favorite mods that are out there? You think, like, let's say, the best car combinations that have really kind of stirred your heart for sim racing?
I think if we're talking any one particular supplier of mods, I think anyone that's familiar with the scene will know of Race Sim Studio. Everything they produce is really high quality, and some of the guys at Race Sim Studio have worked and continue to work with other sim developers when they outsource projects and stuff. So the stuff that you're getting from them is as good or better than would come from the developers themselves. They put a huge amount of work and effort into it. But if I had to pick one mod, actually, I would pick the IER endurance racing team produced a mod of a mid 2010s prototype car that they're calling the IER 13. I'm skirting around what the actual car is because of some of the copyright issues that come from that. But they produced this incredible mod for Assetto Corsa that required a whole bunch of rewriting the physics of the core game itself. I featured it on the channel last year, and an in-depth interview with the creator and the guy that created all of the physics for that car. But the lengths that they went to say, well, this is the sim to develop it for, because it's the most friendly to modding and producing this third-party content. But, well, the aerodynamic simulation in it is a little bit basic by modern standards, and the brake simulation isn't quite there. The way brake heat maybe transfers into tires isn't there, and all of these other things. They're like, well, we've got the technology to rewrite the core physics of this game now, so let's take one passion project, work on it for years, and produce the best possible car from a physics perspective, the most realistic car that they possibly could. And they had so much real world data, and the guys behind this have quite a lot of real world motorsport experience as well themselves. So they're not coming entirely from a place of just some guy at his keyboard who's never seen a real world car.
Right.
But you just, it's hard not to be impressed by the lengths that some of these modding teams and groups of individuals go to.
It's interesting because whenever you kind of talk about sim racing in the different kind of communities, they're always Assetto Corsa always comes up, and then Assetto Corsa competition always comes up, and then to a degree, then you get iRacing, and then other parts as well. I'm trying to think of the other one. I know there's R Factor, and there's quite a few others. I mean, why do you think Assetto Corsa is just so much more accepted, or seems to be so popular compared to the likes of iRacing and other sim racing
Well, I
games?
think, it's interesting. In terms of online racing that's available, iRacing is the dominant platform, and particularly in the United States, iRacing is far and away the most popular racing sim. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case in Europe, but it is still very popular. It's definitely up there. Assetto Corsa's USP, really, the original Assetto Corsa this is, which still lives on thanks to the modding community. Its USP was the fact that it was open and they provided tools to help people create their own content for it. Not only that, Kunos Simulazione, who created the sim, produced a whole bunch of content. I think it was popular, and that enabled them to go and reach out to manufacturers and get a whole bunch of extra cars and tracks into the sim as they went through. And I think the popularity kind of swept it along. But I think it goes back to that point I was making earlier on, is that it enabled a diverse group of people with very divergent interests, like, as I said, the drifting community, or there are people that rally, or there are people that do cruises on open world maps in Assetto Corsa. There are people that literally just get online together and just go for a drive and have a chat. In this sim that was really designed by a bunch of Italian race car fans who just wanted to drive their favorite race cars. But it's been taken on and made to do so many things by this just extremely talented and passionate and slightly mad modding community.
So here's the big question for you. If I'll check to see if we've got comments from people watching as well. But if someone was new to sim racing and they had the choice between getting a brand new PS5 with all the kind of games that are coming for that, or getting a PC and going down the Assetto Corsa kind of route to that kind of route, what would be your recommendation?
Well, I mean, the first question is really, it's very difficult to give a one-size-fits-all answer, because the big question is really how deep are your pockets. I think with the price of a PS5 just creeping up again over the last generation, then those two are coming slightly closer together. So it's maybe not quite the deal it was in the past. What I will say is, and I think I may have even given you this answer on the podcast last year, I got back into sim racing. I've been doing this on and off since I was about 10 years old, or even 8 years old, or something like that, with Jeff Crammon's first Microprose Grand Prix game. But I took a bit of a pause for a few years. Well, certainly didn't take it seriously for a very long time, and came back in 2014, or probably maybe even early 2015, when Assetto Corsa got released on the PlayStation 4. And that was the console I had at the time, just as a general gaming console. I picked it up because I like picking up car games. I've got a kind of interest in cars, which may have come across. But I picked this up and I thought, hey, this is really good. This is serious. This is totally not appropriate for a controller. Okay, I'll have to get a wheel. So I bought a Thrustmaster T500 or T300, T300, which is the PlayStation compatible one. And this is really good. This is really great. And then I made the mistake of going onto YouTube and seeing if anyone was making any videos about it. And then I discovered, oh, wow, there's loads of mods available for this. You can't get them on the PlayStation, can you? So I took my sort of office PC, my work PC. I was doing some work in graphic design and other media related things at the time. And I upgraded the graphics card and was like, within minutes, I was deep into it. And I have to attribute everything that's happened here to just chancing across Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember trying to do the same on my business PC, and I thought, because I thought, right, I'll get it on Assetto Corsa, because everyone was saying you need to download it onto the PC, and so I tried it, and I'd upgraded my PC to like 32 gigabytes of RAM, but the graphics card was similarly just not at all up to the scratch. And so when I finally managed to get it to work, and I had to get a download from my Logitech G29 and get all that stuff working, and the computer was slowing down dramatically. And eventually, when I got it on my screen, I would turn the wheel, and about 5 seconds after I turned it, it would turn on the screen. So it was clearly
not ideal, is it?
So I thought, yeah, let's just try and start again. So hopefully there's a gaming PC coming my way fairly soon, in the next couple of months or so, before Christmas is the target. But I can't wait, because I've been missing out on all these incredible games and kind of racing communities. So I'm definitely going to get. I've got a Assetto Corsa and a Assetto Corsa competition, so on stream. So that'll be the next thing. I mean, what would you
such a pace, isn't it? The sim racing industry. There's so much stuff happening. There's so many new entrants sort of coming into this area as well. So it's a good time to be getting further involved, I think.
Yeah. Well, I always find that when I play a Assetto Corsa competition, it helps me, because it's much more of a game you've really got to concentrate, and you've really got to try and get it right, because it doesn't allow for mistakes. It punishes you straight away if you go wide on a or even on a curve. If you touch a curve in the wrong way, it'll spin you off and everything else. And if I do reasonably at that for a few hours of practice and things, then I go back to GT Sports, and these are both on the PlayStation. I find I actually do better on GT Sport. So it must be a game as well that kind of does teach you a bit more about actually how to race properly.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of the more, how do you put this, more sort of deep simulators. I've used the term simulation first titles in the past, because I think things like Assetto Corsa Competizione and R Factor and iRacing put the simulation value as the core thing, and then they work on the graphics and the gameplay and everything else sort of as a secondary thing to that sort of holy bible of the physics. Whereas titles like Forza and GT Sport are like, okay, we've got to make a good game that people really enjoy, and that it's got to look good, and it's got to drive well as well. But it sort of has that sort of slightly different prioritization. Now, that's not to say that the physics are worse in GT Sport, but they are certainly less of a priority, would be the way I would put it. But the underlying physics, or the underlying way you drive a car, with some exceptions, is pretty similar in all of those sims. There are obviously nuances, and there are obviously exploits as well, which is another thing that you can't get away from until you build the perfect simulator that absolutely perfectly simulates real life. There will always be little ways that you can game the system, and those do vary massively between the various sims, because there's so many potential ways to find an advantage in a game. And that's where all the fast esport guys are absolutely brilliant, because they do 20,000 laps and they find out that, if I downshift from third to second gear during this corner, it helps rotate the car. Or if I let off the brakes in a way that you probably wouldn't in a real car, here it actually helps, because they found that maybe, say, the modeling of the differential in that particular car isn't quite as realistic as you might hope. And it's it's a bit of a weird area to be delving into, and honestly nothing to do with the question you asked.
No, that's brilliant. But it's interesting that you said that, Variant, because one of my friends had been watching a video with Nico Rosberg, and he was saying how, it was like a track guide, I think, for Turkey or a previous track, and he was saying that how you could get the car to go around some of the corners better was not to change down until you got to the apex. And if you did it just on the apex, then there was just enough. It gave you a little bit more turning ability.
That's a very, very common thing with the F1 game. It's a really well-known exploit. Even if at this stage you call it an exploit, I'm not sure I would. I would say it's just part of how the physics of that car are modeled. Again, I assume in that case it is something to do with the differential. It seems likely, but I don't know. I'm not. I don't spend a lot of time seriously racing in the Formula One games, just because my interest in a lot of this is in classic motorsport or in GT racing these days.
It's funny how the F1, because we all watched lots of people watched the F1 esports races in the summer, and I mean the pro drivers were fantastic, because we did some kind of mock commentary on it, and we just did it as a live podcast. So me and my co-host, we would watch it live on YouTube or on Twitch, and then in turn we would do our own commentary, and then we recorded it and put it off as a podcast. And it was quite fun. That the pro drivers were incredible, because they would never cut a corner. They had the full damage on, all of that, and they were actually quite good races to commentate on. It was when they did the celebrity races, or the kind of, everyone was coming in from cricketers to footballers to everything else, and then of course they turned the damage off. So we were crashing and the rest of it, and it didn't. I really didn't think they did it justice of what it could have been.
I think there was a lot of needing to things to be learned very quickly, because that all happened in the early stages of lockdown, as people were realizing, well, there's going to be no motorsport this year. What do we do? How do we help honor brand commitments, sponsor commitments? How do we keep the public entertained? How do we continue doing what we do in some way, shape, or form? And there were people like Veloce Esports. Excuse me, I've just got a pop up right in front of your face, Hugh. You have people like Veloce Esports who are very experienced in this kind of thing and did a great job with their series. You had, whereas maybe with some of the other series, they were in slightly unknown territory, and I think people got it together pretty quickly. But there was a definite vertical learning curve.
And I thought it was interesting that, like for example, the Sky Sports F1 that covered quite a lot of it, but they didn't use their main presenters, which I was a little bit surprised at, because I thought they might wanted to get in on the action and have Martin Brundle and David Croft, because that does.
Well, I think it's because they were taking on the normal F1 esports guys. So that's a series that's been going on for quite a while, for a number of years now, 2 or 3, I think. And so that's a production that they're trying to bring to people, and regardless of DC and Martin Brundle being available, it was probably a calculated decision to introduce the normal broadcast, or as close to the normal broadcast package as they could. Also, I hate to say it, during the early part of lockdown, simulated racing got a huge amount of exposure, some of it good, some of it bad, and introducing a lot of, perhaps, and this might become unpopular, but perhaps more ingrained motorsport personalities into sim racing didn't always go that well, in my experience, because not everyone takes it as seriously. And when you've got a whole group of a whole production like F1 Esports, where there are 24 drivers and 20 drivers and 10 teams and dozens of support staff for each of those teams. And then you've got all of the event organizers and the producers, the sound guys, the lighting guys. And, this is a thing that employs hundreds of people. If you have a talking head that perhaps isn't really into the idea and doesn't really get it, doesn't really know anything about it, it does make a bit of a mockery of it. And we've seen a few of those sort of types of situations crop up. So I think having the real esports guys in there doing their job
was probably better.
There's a sort of cost benefit there. That being said, I want to see Martin Brundle turn his hand to doing some sim racing commentary, because he is a true pro, and I think even if he thought sim racing was the stupidest thing in the world, he'd do an excellent job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always think you could have some great moments. I could imagine Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert, on a sim rig, and
Johnny did some racing.
Yeah, he did some racing
in one of the series last year. Yeah.
He did some good takeouts. And
Johnny did well as well. I was impressed to see that. He always comes across as a bit of a, I think the personality he likes to portray on TV and in the media is a bit of a happy-go-lucky, bit of a chancer type, and maybe doesn't take things all that seriously. But it was interesting. He was one of those guys that when you got him in a car or in a race sim, I should say, he was definitely very serious about it. Yeah. And there are lots of real-world racers that have come across during the last year that are taking it really, really seriously, and they've seen, well, here's a chance for me to do some competitive racing, whereas my season may not have panned out. So, kudos to them. But equally, you can't expect every personality within the real world motorsport scene to have that approach. And that's where some of those issues occurred, is that some people are just seeing it as this is a laugh, I can help. This is a laugh and I can sort of help out my sponsors. Whereas other people are like, okay, now this is something, sim racing is really growing. This is something to take seriously and do something with.
because I think as well when we were watching it, we thought what they really maybe needed to do was, if they were going to take it as a kind of F1 replacement until the races started, they really needed to get everybody, every driver who was involved in F1 at the time, to get their sim rig sorted out, ship it out to them if need be.
I think they struggled to get a lot of the real world main drivers on board. And then again, you had people like Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, who were and still deeply are heavily involved in sim racing outside of their real world commitments, who just aren't really big proponents of the official F1 title. So, you know, I think they might have had issues with buy-in from all sorts of angles there from the real world drivers.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Well, we've got a couple of questions for you. In the comments. No, I think they're all fairly straightforward. One from Luke from the Sim Hub. A question for Chris: what's it like to be interviewed instead of interviewing?
Oh, it's a lot easier. I mean, the only prep work I had to do for this was throw up a couple of lights, and they were there anyway, to be honest. So it's just making sure that I'm in focus, which I'm kind of hoping I am. So honestly, it's a lot less stressful. I was able to be on a call until 5 minutes before this interview, and I've got another call scheduled for 5 minutes afterwards. If I'm doing it myself, I couldn't have that sort of laissez-faire attitude to this.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot easier. I've got my notes here for questions, so hopefully it will all. I won't run out, but no, I'm sure it's all good. We've got another question from Jeff Colclough, who is the fiancé of Thea from the Amazons, who's got a big community out there in ACC and other racing. So the question is sim racing commentary the same as motorsport commentary?
Is it the same? I think, well, this is an interesting thing, and it's something I've been wanting to talk about for a little while, but haven't really formulated my thoughts entirely on it. So I apologize if this is a little bit rambling. There is a little bit of a division where between, I think, people that see sim racing or racing esports from a perspective of the esports community. So people doing Counter-Strike and League of Legends and all of those things, and people that see racing esports from the perspective of motorsport.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a dichotomy there. In, say, League of Legends or Call of Duty or whatever, your commentators are called casters or shoutcasters, and there is a sort of etiquette that is very different to what you would expect from a Martin Brundle or a David Croft type or commentating over motorsport, and that there's kind of a tension there, I think. And having done jobs for multiple organizations now, doing commentary, there's a bit of a difference in opinion of what's wanted, and I think that highlights a bigger issue that I love to get on my soapbox about every time I'm given the opportunity, which is that sim racing, or I should say racing esports, doesn't yet have a really defined audience. It doesn't have an audience that's been grown and matured into something that's just there all the time, and you turn on the switch and the audience is there to watch your sim racing production. Now, every viewer at the moment for every sim racing event is hard won. They're fought for. Whereas obviously, you know, if you run a Formula One race in Turkey, for example, this weekend, even without a lot of promotion for it, millions and millions of people are going to tune in and watch, and they know what they're going to expect. They know what the product is, and you don't have to explain everything. Whereas every sim racing event, you have to explain everything about it. You have to explain how the points work. You have to explain the competition format. You have to explain and introduce all of the drivers, because most of the time the audience doesn't know who they are. And it's like starting from scratch all the time, because that audience hasn't been built, because we don't really know who that audience is to the same extent. It's not been really well cultivated yet. And I think I always take some level of personal responsibility for that, because it's people like me who do commentary jobs that maybe don't have the opportunity to communicate those stories properly, or people like me who produce content surrounding this industry who maybe don't get across and help do our own part in building that audience as well. So, I'm not throwing rocks at anyone. I think the whole industry just needs to do a slightly better job of defining what racing esports is, who it's supposed to be targeting, and get out there and build that audience.
Yeah, that's great. And as a follow-up question, Jeff has said, does understanding the tech help?
Does understanding the tech help? I don't know. I mean, I understand. I understand the tech, so I don't have both experiences. I think that the tech, particularly in terms of just actually commentating, logging into a race session and commentating, isn't particularly difficult to get your head around. And yeah, realistically, if anyone wants to get involved in racing commentary for the real world, I think there is a good template that practicing with sim racing events absolutely gives you a huge advantage. There are a number of people who've started off in this in this space and are now commentating on real world events. We've got Actual Vision very recently has gone from being a really well known sim racing caster and is doing stuff with DTM at the moment. And it's great to see things like that, because how else are you going to get experience? It's really sim racing on live events and being able to do it under pressure, or talking along to tapes of the 1988 World Sports Car Championship. Not that I've done, of course.
I was going to say there's a fantastic tweet by Martin Brundle a few days back, where I think it was near Murray Walker's birthday, I think it was, or one of the they were celebrating so many years of commentary. And when he first started with Murray Walker back in 1997, he took this video of them in the commentary box. And at that point, they were sharing a mic, and you had Murray starting off. And the great thing was, there he was. Martin was standing in the background. Murray was right next to him. Murray had the hold of the microphone. He was standing up, and he was saying, going around the left-hander, the right-hander, doing the whole bit, and he making the emotion and all the enthusiasm of the race. And then he gives the mic back to Martin, and he just says, "Yep," and that's fine. And then it goes on in a completely different, So all that emotion and enthusiasm, and then you had Martin's kind of first go with a kind of calmer angle.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting going back and listening to Martin in the first couple of seasons of commentary, because I think he sort of saw his role as the technical guy there, the guy that was there to provide some real world context and be able to talk about, well, the technical stuff, because Formula One is a complex sport. But he has developed into this extraordinary storyteller, and that's the thing I appreciate about Martin Brundle, is his ability to communicate the nuance of the sport in an engaging way. And it is like being read a bedtime story by someone that's very passionate about the sport. And not sure he'd appreciate it being referred to as a bedtime story. I certainly don't. I get comments on YouTube all the time saying, "Oh, you have a wonderful speaking voice. I could go to sleep listening to this." And I'm thinking, that's not quite the comment. That's not quite the compliment that you think you're saying. I have been known to put people to sleep. Certainly.
But no, it's good.
I was talking about sim racing, actually, as it happens.
I always enjoy when it was Martin Brundle and David Coulthard. That's the short time that they worked at the BBC. I thought that was fantastic.
That was, yeah. That's my favourite commentary pairing. I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on the current pairing on Sky Sports, but I'm a big Martin Brundle fan, and we'll leave it at that, shall we?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Now, you've also been racing in some big series as well, because you were in the Ferrari Hublot series, wasn't it?
The Ferrari Hublot Esports series, yeah. That was interesting.
How did that go? Because I know there was a few connection issues for one of them, wasn't it?
There's a few funny stories with that. First of all, it was kind of pitched as, there's going to be some hardcore esports guys, but there's going to be a load of influencers in there as well. And I thought, well, that's okay. I'm not an esports competitor. I've spent a lot of time around the esports guys, and I know that when I really put some effort in, I can get to within about a second of them, which I think is great. I'm very happy with that. That's pretty common for a lot of sim racers out there, is that if you're not doing 10,000 hours or whatever stupid number it is in the car and track combination that they do, you're not going to be able to compete with them. That's what they do for a living. And of course, those guys are brilliant and untouchable. And it's a privilege to share a track with people that make driving cars, tricky cars, particularly in that case, look so effortless. But yes, it was a troubled series for me, in that the first event was scheduled for a day after I'd moved into here, or 2 days after I'd moved into here. So I was on 4G for it, and there was, because the internet hadn't been connected, the fiber hadn't been connected at the time, and we agreed that, okay, well, I'll try and connect, but You know, if my ping isn't good enough, if my connection isn't stable enough, then I'm not going to race. I'm not. The last thing I want to do is ruin someone else's day because I'm trying to log into Orange on my phone to make sure the connection's working or whatever. You know, you can't be doing that. I had a better fare at Zandvoort, which is the second round. My qualifying was pretty decent there, and unfortunately, I got taken out at turn 3 after a great start and managed to make my way past about 5 or 6 people. Was very happy with that, you know, being really, you know, not up the front, but, you know, really mixing it with people a lot quicker than me, but didn't make it past lap 1 without getting horrendous injuries. Then in Nürburgring, same thing happened. I got to about halfway through the race, and I've not shared this online, so this is an exclusive for you, Hugh. I've got a video clip of this that I may share one day, but I didn't want to upset anyone involved in the series at the time. But the most bizarre thing happened. There was some sort of issue with the server where one of the cars that was running about 5 seconds ahead of me on the track teleported backwards into the same space my car was occupying, so overlapping for less than 1/10 of a second. It was 2 frames or something on the video replay. 2 frames. But that was enough to count as an accident. And well, this happened in such a short space of time that all I know is I'm driving along, I'm on a straight, and then the car just explodes. So, and then that sort of underlines the sort of luck that I had through that. Spa, the final round, I did okay. I think I came in at about 12th or 13th at the end out of 24, which again, with esports runners and stuff, I was more than happy with. But not the best showing, but again, I wasn't expecting to do anything other than come last every time when I saw the field was 99% esport professionals and not YouTube idiots.
I was going to say, most Alfa Romeo owners will probably sympathize with you because that tends to happen. One moment they're driving along, everything seems fine, minding their own business. The next thing you know, your car's on fire. And that's it. But now we've got Thea who has been watching, and she's saying, "Oh, Hugh and Chris, I was more than a little surprised by the grid as well." Smiley faces there.
We had a great battle throughout the second round. Sorry, my first round at Zandvoort, a race-long battle. Sorry, I've interrupted you, Hugh. Go on.
No, you were going to. That's exactly what I like. Because I remember watching the race and it was fantastic. And she says here, it was really fun racing with you at Zandvoort. Impressed by your speed in other races when you had less damage. And I
don't think it was possible to have more damage at Zandvoort. No, Thea did an incredible job of driving defensively throughout that whole race. I think I made about 7 or 8 really strong attempts to overtake, and probably that again, just sort of half-hearted minor, just sort of, little showing the car in the mirrors sort of things. And she knew where I was quick compared to her, and was always able to put the car exactly where it needed to be. That I had just no chance whatsoever. I think even without damage, I would have really struggled to get past. Those cars were particularly understeery. Even with all of the setup options pushed towards it being a more agile car, you had lots of understeer. It made it very difficult to really be confident going past people, and it was a tough car to overtake, and we saw throughout the field. And I was lucky enough to be sort of hanging out with David and Josh throughout that series, and James Parker as well, good friends with all those people, being able to hear them complain about how difficult it was to overtake as well. And they are much, much more professional drivers than I am.
Yeah, because I heard it did seem to be a very heavy car compared to other GT3s.
Well, I mean, it's a road car. It's not a GT3 car, really. It looks like the 488 GT3. Yeah. It's got some of the interior, and it's got a couple of the aero bits that make it look like it. But it really is the 488 road car with a set of slicks slapped on and a couple of tweaks to make it safe to race in. So, and it behaved more like a road car. Well, on slicks, obviously.
Yeah.
I feel like I keep saying on slicks because it does change things massively.
Well, Jeff Colclough has been saying it was a bit of a tank, because of course he would have been advising Thea at the time when she was racing on how to get the setup all sorted out and things like that. But
it just wanted to go straight on all the time, even with some pretty extreme setup choices on it. It was understeery, certainly.
So would you like to do more of those kind of races? Are you got anything planned in the near
Well,
future?
there's a big question. I don't know what the answer to that is. When the right series comes along that's fun and allows me to race with my friends and I think has the right approach to the community side of things, then I
Mhm.
love to do things like that. But unsurprisingly, I get offered to be involved in quite a few of these things, and I have to turn them down because they take a huge amount of time
Yeah.
because you need to do quite a lot of prep work. Thea will know that for sure. The amount of work you have to put in to do that isn't just turning up on the day and driving. You
Yeah.
can't enter a competition like that unprepared. It's not fair to the other guys and the level of dedication they've got.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a big ask to do these things, and with the kind of schedule I keep and the videos that I try to make, it's difficult to fit that in. So
Yeah.
that's a meandering political way of saying, yeah, if the right thing comes along, I'll do it.
Now that's the thing. And so, I mean, how do you see your channel growing as well in the future? Because obviously you've gotten to a really good level. What's the next steps for you in that way?
You know what's very interesting is that the next step has always been working towards sort of today, really being on the Hugh Hattrick show again. No, having a dedicated workspace and
Yeah.
being able to sort of really do my own thing and forge my own course. And I've sort of got there. I've now had 6 weeks working here, and things are calming down. Most of that 6 weeks has been construction work, as well as video work. But that's again just one of the realities of doing this kind of thing. So the actual short answer is I don't know what the next step is. I think there's definitely a period of stabilization where I just need to sort
Yeah.
of calm down and don't come up with any other harebrained schemes. There are a few things I'm working on in the background in partnership with other people that will hopefully bear some fruit soon, and I'll be able to talk about them. But really, for now, I just want to keep my head down and make some videos.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I mean, I saw the headline of your latest video about how you got rid of your triple screen and you've gone to a one screen. Was it
Yeah,
a
it
big?
wouldn't fit in the van. Yeah,
Sorry.
it wouldn't fit in the van. Yeah.
Oh, well. So that was the main reason. Yeah, because a lot of people have tried that, haven't they? They've gone from they put a big triple screen on, and some people have curved screens and they look amazing. It's
Yeah,
big.
the TLDR for that was the too long didn't read. Basically I found triples a nightmare to work with as a video producer.
Right.
So I really used the video was really a way of sort of explaining some of the differences between triple, all the pros and cons of triple and single screen setups. It's a
Yeah.
video I've been asked to make for a while, and as I said in the beginning of the video, so people are asking every video where I feature the rig why I got rid of the triple screens, and I thought I'm bored of answering this. Let's make a video. Always the best videos always are just from community engagement. It's,
Yeah.
I joke about it, but if the audience is asking it, it's something they want to know. And yeah, unsurprisingly, the videos performed quite well for the first, what are we now, 12 hours or so, or 16
Yeah.
hours since I put it up.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, you've had great success and really good, great viewing figures for your videos, which is excellent. So you're definitely appealing to a decent broad market of sim racers and enthusiasts, which is fantastic. So we do wish you all the best and continued success for your channel and what you're doing. And I think having the studio there is an inspiration to a lot of people because that's what many of us would love to have a space like that where you can go and race and do all your stuff and it's your choice how you head the channel and how it all goes.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm extremely lucky. I am extremely lucky to have to be in the position I am and to have had the help of everyone that's helped me get here. I don't want to appear blasé about the relative success that my channel's had and the partnerships that I've been able to forge with people that have allowed me to do this. So I'm aware that I'm very, very, very lucky.
and do you think in the future, one last quick question, as COVID hopefully releases and we're able to go out and do more events and things like that, it's definitely, isn't it? Hoping that we can. Do you think there'll be more kind of big real racing events alongside sim racing events that you've already taken part in?
Oh well, yes. Sim racing and real racing sharing the same space. Yeah, that we were talking before the show about this.
Yeah.
I got a really good taste of that in 2019 of being able to follow the SRO esports the SRO series, which was Blancpain at the time, is now GT World Challenge, around doing the SRO esports live events at the racetracks. And that was once in a lifetime experience, and was able to go to Le Mans to cover the Le Mans esports thing and stick around for the race they have there every year as well at the same time. And so, I got a lot of wonderful opportunities in 2019. And obviously with 2020, none of that was happening because they're sure as hell not going to let crazy esports gaming people in if they're not going to let the real world races in. So it's been a very different year, and I would love to see more of that next year. And I'd love to see more opportunities as those kind of things grow for other people within the sim racing community to be able to interface with that as well. I think there's a lot of this out there, and there are a lot of opportunities for people in this space to start or continue to work professionally in this environment. A couple of years ago, there was almost none, and now they're just it's everywhere, and they're
I always
sort of opening up for sim racers.
Yeah, I always remember going to Goodwood, the Festival of Speed, a couple of years ago, and it was amazing at how many everywhere they had a sim rig set up. There was queues of people wanting to have a go.
I think we were at Goodwood. We were talking about just before we started the broadcast that we crossed paths at Silverstone, but didn't realise it in 2019. And I think we crossed paths at Goodwood in 2019 as well, and didn't realise it.
I can see that happening in terms of getting. I could see Goodwood, especially the Festival of Speed, having a big sim experience. I think that would be something, and having lots of the big guests coming along. I think that would gather huge.
There is a Festival of Speed mod for Assetto Corsa, so the track's out there. If any enterprising person wants to book themselves a stand there and do that, they will do. I mean, how much would you? Hypothetically speaking, if someone offered you the opportunity to drive up the Goodwood Hill at the Festival of Speed in a real car, you would pay everything you had in the bank account. You'd remortgage the house. You'd find a way of making it happen. But the next best thing is in a sim next to the track. You'll have queues going out of the out the field.
BT Sport had that option for a while. They had it was one of the VW concept cars. I think under 33 seconds or whatever time it was many years back.
It's crazy.
It was great fun. But no, that would be the thing, and I think it would be an amazing thing to do. And again, if you were able, you could actually on the Thursdays at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, you could drive a real car up there for free. When they had the moving motor show, I did that one year it was an Infinity. It was I can't remember which version it was, but it was the hybrid. And I managed to take an old friend of the family who was in his 80s by this point. He sat in the back, and I was driving in the front, and then you had an instructor alongside you to make sure you didn't go too crazy. And of course, they had an extra hay bale so that you didn't go. I think as you came around the first couple of corners, you couldn't go too far on the straight as you went under the bridge. And he said, "Oh, so you want to have some fun with this?" And I said, "Yep." So he said, "Well, first thing you need to do is turn the stop-start off." I said, "That's the first thing to go." So that went off, and off we went, heading up the hill. And the only comment he gave me, he just said, "Well, I can see you're trying to take this seriously anyway." So I don't know if that was good or not, but without crashing. But it would be, as you say, it's an incredible experience to drive up the hill, and even more so if you're driving up the hill in front of a crowd of people who are all watching. It must be amazing. But I can see that definitely going forward at Goodwood. I think they'll do a lot more kind of sim racing stuff there as well, and maybe they'll have you there helping to organize it or helping to put it together and being part of it.
Who knows? I think next year we will. I mean, COVID pending. Let's call it 2022. So we take the all of the guesswork out of it. We will see sim events, all sorts of motorsport events that haven't embraced it before, and there will be all sorts of tie-ins and opportunities. Because I've been involved in lots of these conversations recently about, we'd like to do this here, who do we speak to? And there's a lot of will to make it happen, whether there is the money or any of the other mechanical pieces that are needed to make all of that stuff work those questions are well beyond my pay grade.
But no, that's super. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I know that you're very strict on time. You've got lots of things happening. We don't want to get in the way of you making your videos and having your interviews and things all sorted out. And thanks again to all our viewers who've been watching today or listening on the podcast, and for those who've been asking questions as well. It's brilliant to have Chris on the show. You're always full of incredible information. So we wish you all the best for the channel, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and we'll have you on again a bit later on when you've got more news and we see you commentating even further on these big events. But if you stay on the line for a wee moment, but I'll say to everyone who's watching from all around the world, you've been watching the Car, Sim and Race Driver Show with our very, very special guest. It is the legend that is Chris Haye. And make sure you subscribe to his channel if you've not already done so. But it's fantastic to have everyone watching. And I'll say goodbye from me and goodbye from Chris. Drive fast and try not to crash. We'll be back again tonight. We've got James Bacon, who came 5th in the Spa 24 Hours race from the Sim Grid. So he's tonight at 9 o'clock live. Take care, and we'll see you very soon. Bye just now.